Hello, hello, friends. Hi, hi, hi. Welcome in. Welcome to the Blanket Fort. I'm Strixon. This is my Blanket Fort, and I hope y'all are having a lovely day today. I am sleepy, but that's not gonna stop me from streaming. I am really sleepy, which is weird because I actually got a decent amount of sleep last night. I remember to take my melatonin. But yeah, just giving my hair a little brush. It was really, really messy just moments ago. Hi, thank you so much for coming in. Thank you so much for the follow, by the way. I did see that. Let's see. Zaziao. Sorry, it's early. Hey, I was sleepy too, but happy you're here. I'm happy I'm here too. It will be a no makeup stream because I don't feel like doing my makeup today, and I think that's valid. But yeah. Oh my gosh, I have a huge knot right here. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I don't know if you guys can see. Right here, it's just not city. Oh man. Oh man. The more I look at the knot, the more I realize it's pretty bad. It's fine. You already look amazing. Thank you. Wait, what? No makeup? Woman without makeup on? How could you unfollow? Ha ha. I know you're just joking. I know you're just joshing. Oh my god, this knot in my hair. I didn't expect there to be such a bad knot. I was like, I'm gonna run a brush through my hair and then we'll start reading. Me not knowing there was a huge knot. Thank you, Stream Elements. I am streaming Legend of Drizzt Part 2. Well, Homeland Part 2. And by Part 2, I just mean second time that we're sitting down to read. I'm gonna try to keep, like, the VODs and videos of the reading streams in order, so that if anybody wants to go back and, like, listen through them, they can. Of course, I'm just joking. You do you. I'm here for it. Ah, there we go. Much better. I brushed out the knots. Let me bring some hair forward. It always looks better when I do that. But yes, The Legend of Drizzt. Wait. I honestly just did that so that I can take a screenshot of that for a thumbnail. But yeah, we are on chapter 4. Alright, chapter 4. The First House. 4 cycles of Narmendel. 4 days later. A glowing blue disc floated up the mushroom-lined stone path to the spider-covered gate of House Do'Urden. The sentries watched it from the windows of the 2 outer towers and from the compound as it hovered patiently 3 feet off the ground. Word came to the ruling family only seconds later. What can it be? Briza asked Zacnafane when she, the weapons master, Denon, and Maya assembled on the balcony of the upper level. Thank you, Flippin! I really do appreciate it. Yes, the first part is on YouTube. I'm doing this now. I'm putting VODs of reading streams on YouTube so people could actually go listen to them. Oh my god, it's gonna be like a whole audiobook together. I'm gonna try to also put it all into a playlist, so, you know, easy for folks. Thank you, Flippin. Let's see. What can it be? Briza asked Zacnafane when she, the weapons master, Denon, and Maya assembled on the balcony of the upper level. A summons? Zack asked as much as answered. We will not know until we investigate. He stepped up on the railing and out into the empty air, then levitated down to the compound floor. Briza motioned to Maya, and the youngest Do'Urden daughter followed Zack. It bears the standard of House Bainry. I'm gonna go Bainry. I think that's how I'm gonna pronounce it. Zack called up after he had moved closer. He and Maya opened the large gates, and the disc slipped in, showing no hostile movements. Bainry, Briza repeated over her shoulder, down the house's corridor to where Matron Malice and Reason waited. It seems that you are requested an audience, Matron Mother, Dinan put in nervously. Malice moved out to the balcony, and her husband obediently followed. Do they know of our attack? Briza asked in silent code. And every member of House de Warden, noble and commoner alike, shared that unpleasant thought. House de Vere had been eliminated only a few days before, and a calling card from the first matron mother of Menzo Baranzan could hardly be viewed as a coincidence. Every house knows, Malice replied aloud, not believing the silence to be a necessary precaution within the boundaries of her own complex. Is the evidence against us so overwhelming that the ruling council will be forced to action? She stared hard at Briza, her dark eyes alternating between the red glow of infravision and a deep green they showed in the aura of normal light. That is the question we must ask, Malice stepped up onto the balcony, but Briza grabbed the back of her heavy black robe to stay her. You do not mean to go with the thing? Briza asked. Malice's answering look showed even more startlement. Of course, she replied. Matron Bainry would not openly call upon me if she meant me harm. Even her power is not so great that she can ignore the tenants of the city. You are certain that you will be safe? Reason asked, truly concerned. If Malice was killed, Briza would take over the house, and Reason doubted that the eldest daughter would want any male by her side. Even if the vicious female did desire a patron, Reason would not be the one in that position. He was not Briza's father, was not even as old as Briza. Clearly, the present patron of the house had a lot at stake in Matron Malice's continued good health. Your concern touches me, Malice replied, knowing her husband's true fears. She pulled out of Briza's grasp and stepped off the railing, straightening her robes as she slowly descended. Briza shook her head disdainfully and motioned Reason to follow her back inside the house, not thinking it wise that the bulk of the family be so exposed to unfriendly eyes. Do you want an escort? Zack asked as Malice sat on the disc. I am certain I will find one as soon as I am beyond the perimeter of our compound, Malice replied. Matron Bainry would not risk exposing me to any danger while I am in the care of her house. Agreed, said Zack. But do you want an escort from House de Warden? If one was wanted, 2 discs would have floated in, Malice said in a tone of finality. The matron was beginning to find the concerns of those around her stifling. She was the matron mother, after all, the strongest, the oldest, the wisest, and did not appreciate others second-guessing her. To the disc, Malice said, Execute your appointed task and let us be done with it. Zack nearly snickered at Malice's choice of words. Matron Malice de Warden, came a magical voice from the disc. Matron Bainry offers her greetings. Too long has it been since you two have sat in audience. Never, Malice signaled to Zack. They've never sat in audience. Then take me to House Bainry, Malice demanded. I do not wish to waste my time conversing with a magical mouth. Apparently, Matron Bainry had anticipated Malice's impatience, for without another word, the disc floated out of the de Warden compound. Zack shut the gate as it left, then quickly signaled his soldiers into motion. Malice did not want any open company, but the de Warden spy network would covertly track every moment of the Bainry sled to the very gates of the ruling house's grand compound. Malice's guess about an escort was correct. As soon as the disc swept down from the pathway to the de Warden compound, 20 soldiers of House Bainry, all female, moved out from concealment along the sides of the boulevard. They formed a defensive diamond round the guest matron mother. The guard at each point of the formation wore black robes emblazoned on the back with large purple and red spider design, the robes of a high priestess. Bainry's own daughters, Malice mused, for only the daughters of a noble could attain such a rank. how careful the matron mother had been to ensure Malice's safety on the trip. Slaves and drow commoners tripped over themselves in a frantic effort to get far out of the way of the approaching entourage as the group made its way through the curving streets towards the Mushroom Grove. The soldiers of House Bainry alone wore their house insignia in open view, and no one wanted to invoke the anger of Matron Bainry in any way. Malice just rolled her eyes in disbelief and hoped that she might know such power before she died. She rolled her eyes in again a few minutes later, when the group approached the ruling house. House Bainry encompassed 20 tall and majestic stalagmites, all interconnected with gracefully sweeping and arching bridges and parapets. Magic and fairy fire glowed from 1,000 separate sculptures and 100 regally adorned guardsmen placed about its perfect formations. Even more striking were the inverse structures, the 30 smaller stalactites of House Bainry. They hung down from the ceilings of the cavern, their roots lost in the high darkness. Some of them connected tip to tip with stalagmite mounds, while others hung freely like poised spears. Ringing balconies curving up like the edging of a screw had been built along the length of all of these, glowing with an overabundance of magic and highlighted design. Magic, too, was the fence that connected the bases of the outer stalagmites, encircling the whole of the compound. It was a giant web, silver against the general blue of the rest of the outer compound. Some said it had been a gift from Wolf herself, the iron strong strands as thick as a drow elf's arm. Anything touching Bainry's fence, even the sharpest of drow weapons, would simply stick fast until the matron mother willed the fence to let it free. Malice and her escorts moved straight toward a symmetrical and circular section of this fence, between the tallest of the outer towers. As they neared, the gates spiraled and wound out, leaving a gap large enough for the caravan to step through. Malice sat through it all, trying to appear unimpressed. Hundreds of curious soldiers watched the procession as it made its way to the central structure of House Bainry, the great purple glowing chapel dome. The common soldiers left the entourage, leaving only the 4 high priestesses to escort Matron Malice inside. The sights beyond the great doors to the chapel did not disappoint her. A central altar dominated the place with the row of benches spiraling out in several dozen circuits to the perimeter of the great hall. 2,000 drow could sit there with room to stretch. Statues and idols too numerous to count stood all about the place, glowing in a quiet black light. In the air, high above the altar, loomed a gigantic glowing image, a red and black illusion that slowly and continually shifted between the forms of a spider and a beautiful drow female. A work of Grumph, my principal wizard, Matron Bainry explained from her perch on the altar, guessing that Malice, like everyone else who ever came to Chapel Bainry, was awestruck by the sight. Even wizards have their place. As long as they remember their place, Malice replied, slipping down from the now stationary disc. Agreed, said Matron Bainry. Males can get so presumptuous at times, especially wizards. Still, I wish that I had Grumph at my side more often these days. He has been appointed Archmage of Menzoberranzan, and just seems to always work on Narbondel or other such tasks. Malice just nodded and held her tongue. Of course, she knew that Bainry's son was the city's chief wizard. Everyone knew. Everyone knew, too, that Bainry's daughter, Triel, was the matron mistress of the academy, a position of honor in Menzoberranzan, second only to the title of matron mother of an individual family. Malice had little doubt that Matron Bainry would somehow work that fact into the conversation before too long. Before Malice took a step towards the stairs to the altar, her newest escort stepped out from the shadows. Malice scowled openly when she saw the thing, a creature known as an illithid, a mind flayer. It stood about 6 feet tall, fully a foot taller than Malice, most of the difference being the result of the creature's enormous head. Glistening with slime, the head resembled an octopus with pupilless pupilless, milky white eyes. Malice composed herself quickly. Mind flayers were not known in Menzoberranzan. Were not unknown, in Menzoberranzan. And rumors said that one had befriended Matron Bainry. These creatures, though more intelligent and more evil than even the drow, were almost always inspired shudders of revulsion. You may call him Methil, Matron Bainry explained. His true name is beyond my pronunciation. He is a friend. Before Malice could reply, Bainry added, Of course, Methil gives me an advantage in our discussion, and you are not accustomed to illithids. Then, as Malice's mouth drooped open in disbelief, Matron Bainry dismissed the illithid. You read my thoughts, Malice protested. Few could insinuate themselves through the mental barriers of a high priestess well enough to read her thoughts. The practice was a crime of the highest order in Drow society. No! Matron Bainry explained, immediately on the defensive. Your pardon, Matron Malice. Methil reads thoughts, even the thoughts of a high priestess, as easily as you or I hear words. He communicates telepathically. On my word, I did not even realize that you had not yet spoken your thoughts. Malice waited to watch the creature depart the great hall, then walked up the steps to the altar. In spite of her efforts against the action, she could not help peeking up at the transforming spider and drow image every now and then. How fares House Do'Urden? Matron Bainry asked, feigning politeness. Well enough, replied Malice, more interested at that moment in studying her counterpart than conversing. They were alone atop the altar, though no doubt a dozen or so clerics wandered through the shadows of the great hall, keeping a watchful eye on the situation. Malice had all that she could handle in hiding her contempt for Matron Bainry. Malice was old, nearly 500, but Matron Bainry was ancient. Her eyes had seen the rise and fall of a millennium, by some accounts, though drow rarely ever lived past their 7th, and certainly not their 8th century. While drow normally did not show their age, Malice was as beautiful and vibrant now as she had been on her 100th birthday. Matron Bainry was withered and worn. The wrinkles surrounding her mouth resembled a spider's web, and she could hardly keep the heavy lids from her eyes from drooping altogether. Matron Bainry should be dead, Malice noted, but still she lives. Matron Bainry seemed so beyond her time of life, was pregnant and due in only 10 days. In this aspect too, Matron Bainry defied the norm of the Dark Elves. She has given birth 20 times, twice as often as any others in Menzoberranzan, and 15 of those she bore were female, every one a high priestess. 10 of Bainry's children were older than Malice. How many soldiers do you now command? Matron Bainry asked, leaning in closer to show her interest. 300, Malice replied. Oh, mused the withered old drow, pursing a finger to her lips. I had heard the count at 350. Malice grimaced in spite of herself. Bainry was just teasing her, referring to the soldiers House Do'Urden had added in its raid on House Devere. 300, Malice said again. Of course, Matron Bainry, replied Bainry, resting back. And House Bainry holds 1,000? Malice asked for no better reason than to keep herself on even terms in the discussion. That has been our number for many years. Malice wondered again why this old decrepit thing was still alive. Surely more than one of Bainry's daughters aspired to the position of matron mother. Why hadn't they conspired and finished Matron Bainry off? Or why hadn't any of them, some in their later stages of life, struck out on their own to form separate houses, as was the norm for noble daughters when they passed their 5th century? While they lived under Matron Bainry's rule, their children would not even be considered nobles, but would be relegated to the ranks of commoners. You have heard the fate of House Devere? Matron Bainry asked directly, growing as tired of the hesitant small talk as her counterpart. Of what house? Malice asked pointedly. At this time, there was no such thing as House de Vere in Menzoberranzan. To Drow reckoning, the house no longer existed. The house never existed. Matron Bainry cackled. Of course, she replied. You are a matron mother of the 9th house now. That is quite the honor. Malice nodded, but not as great an honor as matron mother of the 8th house. Yes, agreed Bainry, but the 9th is only one position away from the seat of the ruling council. That would be an honor indeed, Malice replied. She was beginning to understand that Bainry was not simply teasing her, but was congratulating her as well, prodding her on to greater glories. Sorry, I just realized that my camera is, like, slightly delayed. More than normal. I'm sorry if that's, like, related, like, happening on stream too. Let me know if it is, because it seems to be fucked up on my end too. Might reset my camera. In fact, I might just do that right now. Sorry. Maybe no. I'll finish the chapter because we're so close. Malice brightened at the thought. Bainry was the highest favor of Spider Queen. She was... What are you referring to? Oh, the lag? Yeah, it's lagging on my side too, so I think it's just the camera. She was pleased with House de Warden's ascension, and so was Lofi. Not to mention, not as much of an honor as you would believe, said Bainry. You're a group of meddling old females, gathering every so often to find new ways to put our hands into places they do not belong. The city recognizes your rule. Does it have a choice? Bainry laughed. Still, Drow business is better left to the matron mothers of the individual houses. Lofi would not stand for a presiding council exacting anything that even remotely resembled total rule. Do you not believe that House Bainry would have conquered all of Menzoberranzan long ago, as if that was the Spider Queen's will? Malice shifted proudly in her chair, appalled by such arrogant words. Now, of course, Matron Bainry explained. The city is too large for such an action in this age. But long ago, before you were even born, House Bainry would not have found such a conquest difficult. But that is not our way. Lofi encouraged diversity. She is pleased that the houses stand to balance each other, ready to fight beside each other in times of common need. She paused a moment and let a smile appear on her wrinkled lips, and ready to pounce upon any that fall out of her favor. Another direct reference to House de Vere, Malice noted, this time directly connected to the Spider Queen's pleasure. Malice eased out of her angry posture, and found the rest of the discussion, fully 2 hours long, with Matron Bainry quite enjoyable. Still, when she was back on the disc and floating out through the compound, past the grandest and strongest house in all of Menzoberranzan, Malice was not smiling. In the face of such an open display of power, she could not forget that Matron Bainry's purpose in summoning her had been twofold: to privately and cryptically congratulate her on her perfect coup, and to vividly remind her not to get too ambitious. Okay, that was the end of the chapter. I will be fixing the camera now. Thank you guys for your patience. Hey. It's still kind of... Sorry. Maybe if I unplug it and plug it back in. Which one? Is that this one? Yes. Alright, plugged back in. Of course, wonderful face to be left on. Nope. Gosh. Huh. It's like half a second delay. I think it's a little better than it was. It's hard to tell. So I'm really sorry if you guys don't like it. I don't know what else to do to fix it. I tried unplugging, plugging it back in, and deactivating and reactivating it. Oh, what did I do? Wait, stop that! Alright, we're back. Alright, now we're on chapter 5, and this chapter actually goes back to Drizzt. Chapter 5, Weaning. Use Streamlabs or OBS? I use OBS. I used to use Streamlabs, and then on my old laptop it just was using too much energy, so I had to switch over. Take a sip, take a sip. Okay. Okay, I'm looking it up. Thank you. I'm gonna go grab that water then. While you do that, thank you so much, Flippin'. Water, 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 water. I was waiting for the chapter to change. Is your webcam Logitech? Also, hello, actually Steak. Welcome, welcome in. My webcam J5 Create. God, I wish I still had the box. Shouldn't have gotten rid of it. Yeah, I don't know if it just says J5 Create on it. Yeah, J5 webcam JVCU 100 is what it says. Oop, I don't know what I did there. Hello. Yeah, no, that's still a little delayed. Hey, I'm doing good. We're just trying to figure out the webcam situation, like, a little bit. I feel bad that it's lagging. And I would like to try to help you guys have a better watching experience. But I don't know what would help it. Do I customize the resolution FPS? Well, that just closed everything when I switched it to custom. Oh my gosh. Oh, I mean, do you guys see a lag when I talk? Ba 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 bum. Okay. Okay, okay, okay. Okay. I will go ahead and get going on the next chapter, I guess? You do? Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know what to do about it. It's never done this before. Oh no, you're good. You're good. You're good. Though I did just do something weird to it. Love this. Love this. Trying to figure it out. I'm sorry. No, you're good. You're good. You're good, Flippin'. Thank you so much for the help. I just feel bad. There we are. I think it's still, yeah, super still lagging. But yeah, it is early morning here. Well, early. It's like 10 o'clock here. And I am hot. It is hot. To be fair, the raking light is not being very kind. Alright, well, we'll at least start with chapter 5. Yeah, and I'm sorry about the lag. And Flippin', if you have any ideas, go ahead and let me know and I will try them out. Alright, chapter 5, Weaning. For 5 long years, Vierna devoted almost every waking moment to the care of baby Drizzt. In Drow society, this was not so much a nurturing time as an indoctrinating time. The child had to learn basic motor and language skills, as did children of all intelligent races. But a Drow elf also had to be grilled on the precepts that bound the chaotic society together. In the case of a male child, such as Drizzt, Vierna spent hour after endless hour reminding him that he was inferior to Drow females. Since almost all of this portion of Drizzt's life was spent in the family chapel, he encountered no males except during times of communal worship. Even when all in the house gathered for unholy ceremonies, Drizzt remained silent at Vierna's side, with his gaze obediently on the floor. When Drizzt was old enough to follow commands, Vierna's workload lessened. Still, she spent many hours teaching her younger brother. Presently, they worked on intricate facial, hand, and body movements of the silent code. Yeah. Often, though, she just set Drizzt about the endless task of cleaning the domed chapel. The room was barely a fifth the size of the great hall in House Bainry, but it could hold all the dark elves of House Dowarden, with 100 seats to spare. Just DM'd you a 2-minute video, but you can fast forward to like 30 seconds. Alright. Is there a break in the narrative anytime soon? Not really. That's like 2 pages. Okay. Real quick break, and I'm gonna try to fix this. I assume. Wait, where'd you DM me? On Discord. Hey guys, it's yeah, we're just doing this.
What's up, guys? It is Ben with my issues of my. Hopefully, like I said before, this will work for you. So I am doing this in OBS. You can do this in any other software that allows you to access your webcam settings. So what you want to do if you are doing this in OBS, all you need to do is go to your webcam. Once when you are here, you want to go to your webcam properties. So when you are at your webcam menu, I'm just going to hit configure video. That'll bring up my webcam properties. Once when I am here, I want to go to camera control, and I want to click this box right here to turn off the low light compensation. And bango, you will notice that your webcam is a lot faster.
Alright, I'll try that. And I can also just turn on more lights. Alright, so we're going to my webcam properties. Wait, no. Well, yeah. Then, what was it? What did he say? No, not that. Configure video, camera control. There we go. It was already on. Hello. I mean, it was already off. Uh, that's no good. Yeah, I already had it off. No, not this face. You guys don't get to see that face. That was embarrassing. Hello? Hello? Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, still lag. Golly. Did he have any other suggestions? Let me pull that back up.
And you won't have to worry about your lag or your desync of your audio, because this, for some reason, makes your webcam a heck of a lot better, because your webcam, if you have that setting on, is trying to brighten it up. So if you turn that off, make sure you have a light nearby. I have one right here so you can see me. Otherwise, if it's up there, you can't see me. So I have to turn it down.
Yeah, unfortunately, I already had that off, so I don't think that's what's causing it. Darn. Thank you so much, Flippin, for finding that, though. That was, like, it was super helpful. I mean, would have been helpful. I guess this is my fault. I have, like, a... It's not, like, the most cheap webcam, but I think it was, like, 30 bucks. I'm sorry. I wish I knew what was happening. Me heckin' too. I mean, maybe it's a stream thing? I wonder if, like, ending the stream and restarting it would help, but also, I don't want to do that because I would fuck up some of my VODs. Anyways, I guess this is just going to be a bit of a funny stream. I apologize. It's not normally like this. If it happens again next stream, we will do some intense troubleshooting. Alright. Being a wean mother was not so bad now, Virna thought, but still she wished she could devote more time to her studies. If Matron Malice had appointed Maya to the task of rearing the child, Virna might already have been ordained as a high priestess. Virna still had another 5 years in her duties with Drizzt. Maya might attain high priestesshood before her. Virna dismissed the possibility. She could not afford to worry about such problems. She would finish her tenure as Ween Mother in just a few short years. On or around his 10th birthday, Drizzt would be appointed page prince of the family and would serve all the household equally. If her work with Drizzt did not disappoint Matron Malice, Virna knew that she would get her due. Go up the wall, Virna instructed. Tend to that statue. She pointed to a sculpture of a naked drow female about 20 feet from the floor. Young Drizzt looked up at it confused. He couldn't possibly climb up to the sculpture and wipe it clean while holding any secure perch. Drizzt knew the high price of disobedience, though, even of hesitation, and he reached up, securing for his first handhold. Not like that, Virna scolded. How? Drizzt dared to ask, for he had no idea what his sister was hinting at. Will yourself up to the gargoyle, Virna explained. Drizzt's small face crinkled in confusion. You are a noble of House de Warden, Virna shouted at him. Or at least you will be one day earn that distinction. In your neck purse you possess the emblem of the house, an item of considerable magic. Virna still wasn't certain if Drizzt was ready for such a task. Levitation was a high manifestation of innate drow magic. Certainly more difficult than illuminating objects in fairy fire or summoning globes of darkness. The Doordan emblem heightened these innate powers of drow elves, magic that usually emerged as drow matured. Whereas most drow nobles could summon the magical energy to levitate once every day or so. The house the nobles of House Do'Warden, with their insignia tool, could do so repeatedly. Normally, Vienna would never have tried this on a male child younger than 10. But Drizzt had shown her so much potential in the last couple of years, she saw no harm in the attempt. Just put yourself in line with the statue, she explained, and will yourself to rise. And Drizzt looked up at the female carving, then lined his feet out just in front of the thing's angled and delicate face, put his hand to his collar, trying to attune himself to the emblem. He had sensed before that the magic coin possessed some kind of power, but it was only a raw sensation, a child's intuition. Now that Drizzt had some focus and confirmation to his suspicions, he clearly felt the vibrations of magical energy. A series of deep breaths cleared distracting thoughts from the young drow's mind. He blocked out other sights of the room. All he saw was the statue, the destination. He felt himself grow lighter, his heels went up, and he was on one toe, though he felt no weight upon it. Drizzt looked over at Vienna, his smile wide in amazement. Then he tumbled into a heap. Foolish male, Vienna scolded. Try again. Try 1,000 times if you must. She reached for the snake-headed whip on her belt. If you fail. Drizzt looked away from her, cursing himself. His own elation had caused the spell to falter. He knew he could do it now, though, and he was not afraid of being beaten. He concentrated again on the sculpture and let the magical energy gather within his body. Vienna, too, knew that Drizzt would eventually succeed. His mind was keen, as sharp as any Vienna had ever known, including those of other females of House Do'Warden. The child was stubborn, too. Drizzt would not let the magic defeat him. She knew he would stand under the sculpture until he fainted from hunger if need be. Vienna watched him go through the series of small successes and failures, the last one dropping Drizzt from the height of nearly 10 feet. Vienna flinched, wondering if he was seriously hurt. Drizzt, whatever his wounds, did not even cry out, but moved back into position and started concentrating all over again. He is young for that, came a comment from behind Vienna. She turned to see Drizzt standing over her, a customary scowl on the older sister's face. Perhaps, Vienna replied, but I'll not know until I let him try. Whip him when he fails, Drizzt suggested, pulling her cruel six-headed instrument from her belt. She gave the whip a loving look, as if it were some sort of pet, and let the snake heads writhe about her neck and face. Inspiration. Put it away, Vienna retorted. Drizzt is mine to rear, and I need no help from you. You should watch how you speak to a high priestess, Drizzt warned, and all of the snake heads, extensions of her thoughts, turned menacingly towards Vienna. As Matron Malice will watch how you interfere with my tasks, Vienna was quick to reply. Drizzt put her whip away at the mention of Matron Malice. Your tasks, she echoed scornfully. You are too yielding for such a chore. Male children must be disciplined. They must be taught their place. Realizing that Vienna's threat held dire consequences, the older sister turned and left. Vienna let Drizzt have the last word. The Ween Mother looked back to Drizzt, still trying to get up to the statue. Enough, she ordered, recognizing that the child was tiring. She could barely get his feet off the ground. I will do it, Drizzt snapped back at her. Vienna liked his determination, but not the tone of his reply. Perhaps there was some truth to Drizzt's words. Vienna snapped the snake-headed whip from her belt. A little inspiration might go a long way. Oh. Drizzt, he's so determined, but also, oof. Got whipped. Got whipped. He's 5 years old here, and he got whipped. He's been whipped since he was, probably his earliest memories. I also just realized the music got turned off. I'm sorry, I turned it off to listen to that video and forgot to turn it back on. Sorry about that. Okay. Vienna sat in the chapel the next day, watching Drizzt hard at work, polishing the statue of the naked female. He had levitated the full 20 feet in his first attempt this day. Virna could not help but be disappointed when Drizzt did not look back to her a smile at the success. She saw him now, hovering up in the air, his hands a blur as they worked the brushes. Most vividly of all, though, Virna saw the scars on her brother's naked back, the legacy of their inspirational discussion. In the infrared spectrum, the whip lines showed clearly, trails of warmth where the insulating layers of skin had been stripped away. Virna understood the gain in beating a child, particularly a male child. Few drow males ever raised a weapon against a female, unless under the order of some other female. How much do we lose? Virna wondered aloud. What more could one such as Drizzt become? When she heard the words spoken aloud, Virna quickly brushed the blasphemous thoughts from her mind. She aspired to become a high priestess of the Spider Queen, Lolth the Merciless. Such thoughts were not in accord with the rules of her station. She cast an angry glare on her little brother, transferring her guilt, again took out her instrument of punishment. She would have to whip Drizzt again this day, for the sacrilegious thoughts he had inspired in her. So the relationship continued another 5 years, with Drizzt learning the basic lessons of life in drow society, while endlessly cleaning the chapel of House Do'Urden. Beyond the supremacy of a female drow, a lesson always accentuated by the wicked snake-headed whip, the most compelling lessons were those concerning the surface elves. The fairies. Evil empires often bound themselves in webs of hate towards fabricated enemies, and none in the history of the world were better at it than the drow. From the first day they were able to understand the spoken word, drow children were taught whatever was wrong in their lives could be blamed on the surface elves. Whenever the fangs of Virna's whip sliced into Drizzt's back, he cried out for the death of a fairy. Conditioned hatred was rarely a rational emotion. Ooh, and that was the end of part 1. And now we are truly on part 2. See that? Very nice. Alright. So this first chunk, this is also Drizzt's actual words. This is probably him in the future reminiscing on what things were like in the past. And this little prologue section is called The Weapons Master. Empty hours, empty days. I find that I have few memories of that first period of my life. Those first 16 years when I was labored as a servant. Minutes blended into hours, hours into days, and so on, until the whole of it seemed one long, barren moment. Several times I managed to sneak out onto the balcony of House Do'Urden and look out over the magical lights of Menzoberranzan. On all of those secret journeys, I found myself entranced by the growing and dissipating heat light of Narbondel, the time clock pillar. Looking back on that now, on those long hours watching the glow of the wizard's fire slowly walk its way up and down the pillar, I am amazed at the emptiness of my early days. I clearly remember my excitement, tingling excitement each time I got out of the house, and set myself into position to observe the pillar. Such a simple thing it was, and yet so fulfilling compared to the rest of my existence. Whenever I hear the whenever I hear the crack of a whip, another memory, more sensation than a memory actually, sends a shiver through my spine. The shocking jolt and the ensuing numbness from those snake-headed weapons is not something that any person would soon forget. They bite under your skin, sending waves of magical energy throughout your body, waves that make your muscles snap and pull beyond their limits. Yet I was luckier than most. My sister Virna was near to becoming a high priestess when she was assigned the task of rearing me, and was at a period of her life where she possessed far more energy than such a job required. Perhaps then there was more to those first 10 years under her care than I now recall. Virna never showed the intense wickedness of our mother, or more particularly our older sister, Briza. Perhaps there was good times in the solitude of the house chapel. It is possible that Virna allowed more gentle side of her to show through to her baby brother. Maybe not. Even though I count Virna as the kindest of my sisters, her words drip in the venom of Lolth, as surely as any of those of clerics in Menzoberranzan. It seems unlikely that she would risk her aspirations towards High Priestess for the sake of a mere child. A mere male child. Whenever there were indeed joys in... whether there were indeed joys in those years, obscured by the unrelenting assault of Menzoberran's wickedness, or whether that earliest period of my life was even more painful than the years that followed. So painful that my mind hides the memories. I cannot be certain. For all my efforts, I cannot remember them. I have more insight into the next 6 years, but the most prominent recollection of the days I spent serving in the court of Matron Malice, aside from the secret trips outside the house, is the image of my own feet. A page prince is never allowed to raise his gaze. Interesting. Drizzt Do'Urden. I wonder if there's a time in the narrative, because it never got far into exile. I just wonder if there's, like, a time in Drizzt's life in these books where he's like, you know, my last name is associated with some really shitty people. I think I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of it. Alright, what time is it? 55. Okay. Alright, we'll read a couple more chapters, obviously. Chapter 6. Two Hands. Drizzt promptly answered the call to his matron mother's side, not needing the whip Briza used to hurry him along. How often he had felt the sting of that dreaded weapon. Drizzt held no thoughts of revenge against his vicious older sister. With all of the conditioning he had received, he feared the consequences of striking her, or any female, far too much to entertain such notions. "Do you know what this day marks?" Malice asked him as he arrived at the side of her great throne in the chapel's darkened anteroom. "No, matron mother," Drizzt answered, unconsciously keeping his gaze on his toes. A resigned sigh rose in his throat as he noticed the unending view of his own feet. There had to be more than life than blank stone and 10 wiggling toes, he thought. He slipped one foot out of his low boots and began doodling on the stone floor. Body heat left discernible tracings in the infrared spectrum, and Drizzt was quick and agile enough to complete simple drawings before the initial lines had cooled. 16 years, Matron Malice said to him. You have breathed the air of Menzoberran's for 16 years. An important period of your life has passed. Hey, thank you so much for the follow. Beans! What the fuck? Welcome in. Hope you enjoy your time here. You're probably a bot, huh? Account created 9 minutes ago? Buddy. Hey Brian, welcome in. Okay. Happy Monday, aka the second to last day to August. I know, it's almost September. Almost September. Y'all know what that means. Anyways. Drizzt did not react, did not see any importance or significance to the declaration. His life was an unending and unchanging routine. One day, 16 years, what difference did it make? If his mother considered important the things he had been put through since his earliest recollections, Drizzt shuddered to think what the next decades might hold. I am thinking of myself. Where has the time gone? Time just continues moving. It never ends. Just keeps going. Somehow Kristen looks like she's reading me an audiobook. I am reading you a book. He had nearly completed his picture of a round-shouldered drow, Briza, being bitten on the behind by an enormous viper. Look at me, Matron Malice commanded. Drizzt felt at a loss. His natural tendency once had been to look upon the person with whom he was talking, but Briza had wasted no time in beating that instinct out of him. The place of a page prince was servitude, The only eyes of page princes were worthy of meeting were those of the creatures that scurried across the stone floor. Except the eyes of a spider, of course. Drizzt had to avert his gaze whenever one of the eight-legged things crawled into his vision. Spiders were too good for the likes of a page prince. "Look at me," Malice said again, her tone hinting at volatile impatience. Drizzt had witnessed the explosions before, a wrath so incredibly vile that it swept aside everything in its path. Even Briza, so pompous and cruel, ran for hiding when the matron mother grew angry. Have a good lurk. Also, weird. Usually the lurk command works. Wonder what's up with that. You know what? It's probably because I disabled Streamlabs, and I probably have to set that up again on Stream Elements. I'll make sure to get that going. Okay. Oh, wait. Oh my god, is the lag fixed? I think the lag fixed itself just on its own. Yeah, it seems good to me. Oh my god. Yay! Alright. Drizzt forced his gaze up tentatively, scanning his mother's black robes, seeing the familiar spider pattern along the garment's back, and decides to judge the angle of his gaze. He fully expected, as every inch passed, a smack on his head or a lashing on his back. Briza was behind him, always with her snake-headed whip near her anxious hand. When he saw her, the mighty matron Malice de Warden, her heat-sensing eyes flashing red, her face cool, but not flushed with angry heat. Drizzt kept tense, still expecting a punishing blow. "Your tenure as page prince is ended," Malice explained. "You are second boy of House de Warden now, and accorded all the..." Drizzt's gaze unconsciously slipped back to the floor. "Look at me!" his mother screamed in sudden rage. Terrified, Drizzt snapped his gaze back to her face, which now was glowing red-hot. On the edge of his vision, he saw the wavering heat of Malice's swinging hand, but he was not foolish enough to try to dodge the blow. He was on the floor then, the side of his face bruised. Even in the fall, though, Drizzt was alert and wise enough to keep his gaze locked onto that of Matron Malice. "No more a servant," Matron roared. "To continue acting like one would bring disgrace to our family." She grabbed Drizzt by the throat and dragged him roughly to his feet. "If you dishonored House de Warden," she promised, her face an inch from his, "I will put needles in your purple eyes." Drizzt didn't blink. In the 6 years since Virna had relinquished care of him, putting him into the general servitude of all the family, he had come to know Matron Malice well enough to understand all of the subtle connotations of her threats. She was his mother, for whatever that was worth, but Drizzt did not doubt that she would enjoy sticking needles into his eyes. "This one is different," Virna said, "in more than the shade of his eyes." "In what way, then?" Zaknafein asked, trying to keep his curiosity at a professional level. Zack had always liked Virna better than the others, but recently she'd been ordained a high priestess, and had since become too eager for her own good. Virna slowed the pace of her gait. The door to the chapel's antechamber was in sight now. "It's hard to say," she admitted. "Drizzt is as intelligent as any male child as I have ever known. He could levitate by the age of 5. Yet, after he became a page prince, it took 10 days of punishment to teach him the duty of keeping his gaze on the floor, as if such a simple act ran unnaturally counter to his constitution." Zaknafein paused and let Virna move ahead of him. "Unnatural?" he whispered under his breath, considering the implication of Virna's observations. Unusual, perhaps, for a drow, but exactly what Zaknafein would expect, and hope, from a child of his loins. Yep, there it is. Zaknafein is Drizzt's father. He moved behind Virna into the lightless anteroom. Malice, as always, sat in her throne at the head of the spider idol, but all the other chains in this room had been moved to the walls. And even though the entire family was present, this was to be a formal meeting, Zack realized, for only the matron mother was accorded the comfort of a seat. "Matron Malice," Virna began in her most reverent voice, "I present to you Zaknafein, as you requested." Zack moved beside Virna and exchanged nods with Malice, but he was more intent on the youngest Do'Urden, standing naked to the waist at the matron mother's side. Malice held up one hand to silence the others, and then motioned for Briza, holding a house Powafwi, to continue. An expression of elation brightened Drizzt's childish face as Briza, chanting through the appropriate incantation, placed the magical cloak, black and shot with streaks of purple and red, over his shoulders. "Greetings, Zaknafane Do'Urden," Drizzt said heartedly, drawing stunned looks from all in the room. Matron Malice had not granted him privilege to speak. He hadn't even asked for permission. "I am Drizzt, second boy of House Do'Urden, no more the page prince. I can look at you now. I mean, at your eyes and not your boots. Mother told me so." Drizzt's smile disappeared when he looked at the burning scowl of Matron Malice. Virna stood as if turned to stone, her jaw hanging open and her eyes wide in disbelief. Zack, too, was amazed, but in a different manner. He brought a hand up to pinch his lips together to prevent him from spreading into a smile that would have inevitably erupted into belly-shaking laughter. Zack could not remember the last time he had seen the matron mother's face so very bright. Briza, in her customary position behind Malice, fumbled with her whip, too confounded by her younger brother's actions to even know what in the 9 hells she should do. It was the first, Zack knew, for Malice's eldest daughter rarely hesitated when punishment was in order. At the matron's side, now prudently a step farther away, Drizzt quieted and stood perfectly still, biting down on his bottom lip. Zack could see, though, that the smile remained in the young drow's eyes. Drizzt's informality and disrespect of the station had to be more than an unconscious slip of the tongue, and more than innocence of inexperience. The weapons master took a step forward to deflect the matron mother's attention from Drizzt. "Second boy?" he asked, sounding impressed, both for the sake of Drizzt's swelling pride and the placate and distract Malice. "Then it is time for you to train." Malice let her anger slip away, a rare event. "Only the basics at your hand, Zaknafane. If Drizzt is to replace Nalthane, his place at the academy will be in Sorcerer. Thus the bulk of his preparations will fall upon reason and his knowledge, limited though it may be, of the magical arts." "Are you so certain wizardry is his lot, matron?" Zack was quick to ask. "He appears intelligent," Malice replied. She shot an angry glare at Drizzt, at least some of the time. Virna reported great progress in his command of innate powers. "Our house needs a new wizard," Malice snarled reflexively, reminded of Matron Banery's pride in her wizard son, the archmage of the city. It had been 16 years since Malice's meeting with the first matron mother of Menzo Baranzan, but she had never forgotten even the tiniest detail of that encounter. Sorcerer seems a natural course. "Hi, Sorcerer Scarum. So happy that you're here. Hope you have a lovely day." Zack took a flat coin from his neck purse, flipped it into a spin, and snatched it out of the air. "Might we see?" he asked. "As you will," Malice agreed, not surprised at Zack's desire to prove her wrong. Zack placed little value in wizardry, preferring the hilt of a blade to the crystal rod components of a lightning bolt. Zack moved to stand before Drizzt and handed him the coin. "Flip it." Drizzt shrugged, wondering what vague conversation between his mother and the weapons master was all about. Until now, he had heard nothing of any future profession being planned for him, or of this place called Sorcerer. With a consenting shrug of his shoulders, he slid the coin into his curled index finger and snapped it into the air with his thumb, easily catching it. Then he held it back out to Zack and gave the weapons master a confused look, as if to ask what was so important about such an easy task. Instead of trying to take the coin, the weapons master pulled out another from his neck purse. "Try both hands," he said to Drizzt, handing it to him. Drizzt shrugged again, and in one easy motion put the coins up and caught them. Zack turned an eye to Matron Malice. Any drow could have performed that feat, but the ease in which one executed the catch was a pleasure to observe. Keeping a sly eye on the matron, Zack produced 2 more coins. Stack 2 on each hand and send all 4 up together, he instructed Drizzt. 4 coins went up, 4 coins were caught. Only parts of Drizzt's body that had even flinched were his arms. 2 hands, Zack said to Malice. This one is a fighter. He belongs in melee magfair. I have seen wizards perform such feats, Malice retorted, not pleased by the look of satisfaction on the troublesome weapons master's face. Zack once had been Malice's proclaimed husband, and quite often since that distant time she took him as her lover. His skills and agility were not confined to the use of weapons, but along with the pleasure that Zaknafein gave Malice, sensual skills that had prompted Malice to spare Zack's life on more than a dozen occasions, came a multitude of headaches. He was the finest weapons master in Menzoberranzan, another fact that Malice could not ignore. But his disdain, even contempt for the Spider Queen, had often landed House Do'Urden into trouble. Zack handed 2 more coins to Drizzt, now enjoying the game. Drizzt put them into motion. 6 went up, 6 came down, the correct 3 landing in each hand. 2 hands, Zack said more emphatically. Matron Malice motioned for him to continue, unable to deny the grace of her youngest son's display. Could you do it again, Zack asked Drizzt. With each hand working independently, Drizzt soon had the coins stacked upon his index fingers, ready to flip. Zack stopped him there and pulled out 4 more coins, building each of the piles 5 high. Zack paused a moment to study the concentration of the young drow, and also to keep his hands over the coins to ensure they were brightened enough by the warmth of his body heat for Drizzt to properly catch them in their flight. Catch them all, second boy, he said in all seriousness. Catch them all, or you will land in Sorcerre, the School of Magic. That is not where you belong. Drizzt still only had the vague idea of what Zack was talking about, but he could tell from the weapon master's intensity that it must be important. He took a deep breath to steady himself, then snapped the coins up. He sorted their glow out quickly, discerning each individual item. The first 2 fell easily into his hands, but Drizzt saw the scattering pattern of the rest would not drop them so easily in line. Drizzt exploded into action, spinning a complete circle, his hands an indecipherable blur of motion. Then he straightened suddenly and looked before Zack. His hands were in fists at his side, and a grim look lay on his face. Zack and Matron Malice exchanged glances, neither quite sure of what had happened. Drizzt held his fists out to Zack and slowly opened them, a confident smile widening across his childish face. 5 coins in each hand. Zack blew a silent whistle. It had taken him, the weapons master of the house, a dozen tries to complete the maneuver with 10 coins. He walked over to Matron Malice. 2 hands, he said a 3rd time. He is a fighter, and I am out of coins. How many could he do? Malice breathed, obviously impressed in spite of herself. How many could we stack? Zaknafein shot back with a triumphant smile. Matron Malice chuckled aloud and shook her head. She had wanted Drizzt to replace Nalfane as the house's wizard, but her stubborn weapons master had, as always, deflected her course. Very well, Zaknafein, she said, admitting her defeat. The second boy is a fighter. Zack nodded and started back to Drizzt. Perhaps one day soon to be the weapons master of House Do'Urden, Matron Malice added to Zack's back. Her sarcasm stopped Zack short, and he eyed her over with his shoulder. With this one, Matron Malice continued wryly, wrenching back the upper hand with her usual lack of shame. Could we expect anything less? Reason, the present patron of the family, shifted uncomfortably. He knew, and so did everyone, even the slaves of House Do'Urden, that Drizzt was not his child. Yeah, it's very clear. Drizzt is not Reason's child, but Zaknafein's. Alright, I'm gonna finish this chapter, and then I'm probably gonna take a little tiny break, just to grab a little breakfast. 3 rooms? Drizzt asked when he and Zack entered the large training hall at the southernmost end of the Do'Urden complex. Balls of multicolored magical light had been spaced along the length of the high-ceilinged stone room, basking the entirety of a comfortably dim glow. The hall had only 3 doors, one to the east, which led to the outer chamber that opened onto the balcony of the house, one directly across from Drizzt, on the southern wall, leading to the last room in the house, and one from the main hallway that they had just passed through. Drizzt knew from the many locks Zack was now fastening behind them, they wouldn't often be going that way. 1 room, Zack corrected. But 2 more doors, Drizzt reasoned, looking out across the room, with no locks. Hash browns or PB&J waffles? I think PB&J waffles are on the docket for today. Oh man, I'm excited for them now. So tasty. Zack corrected. Their locks are made of common sense. Drizzt was beginning to get the picture. That door, Zack continued, pointing to the south, opens into my private chambers. You do not ever want me to find you in there. That other one leads to the tactics room, reserved for times of war. When, if you ever prove yourself to my satisfaction, I might invite you to join me there. That day is years away, so consider this single, magnificent hall, he swept out his arm out in a wide arc, your home. Hell yeah! Hell yeah, we're getting some PB&J waffles. Drizzt looked around, not overly thrilled. He dared to hope that he had left this kind of treatment behind him with his Page Prince days. This setup, though, brought him back to even before his 6 years of servitude in the house. Back to that decade when he had been locked away in the family chapel of Virna. This room wasn't even as large as the chapel, and was too tight for the likings of the spirited young drow. His next questions came out as a growl. Where do I sleep? Your home, Zack said matter-of-factly. Where do I take meals? Your home. Drizzt's eyes narrowed into slits, his face flushed in glowing heat. Where do I... He began stubbornly, determined to foil the weapons master's logic. Your home, Zack replied in the same measured and weighted timbre before Drizzt could finish the thought. Drizzt planted his feet firmly and crossed his arms over his chest. Sounds messy, he growled. It better not be, Zack growled back. Then what is the purpose? Drizzt began. You pull me away from my mother. You will address her as Matron Malice, Zack warned. You will always address her as Matron Malice. From my mother? Zack's next interruption came not with words, but with the swing of a curled fist. Drizzt woke about 20 minutes later. First lesson, Zack explained, casually leaning against the wall a few feet away. For your own good, you will always address her as Matron Malice. Drizzt rolled to his side and tried to prop himself up on his elbow, but found his head reeling as soon as it left the black rugged floor. Zack grabbed him and hoisted him up. Not as easy as catching coins, the weapons master remarked. What? Parrying a blow. What blow? Just agree, you stubborn child. Second boy, Drizzt corrected, his voice again a growl, and his arms defiantly back over his chest. Zack's fist curled at his side, a not too subtle point that Drizzt did not miss. Do you need another nap? The weapons master asked calmly. Second boys can be children, Drizzt wisely conceded. Zack shook his head in disbelief. This was going to be interesting. You may find your time here enjoyable, he said, leading Drizzt over a long, thick, and colorfully, though most of the colors were somber, decorated curtain. But only if you can learn some control over that wagging tongue of yours. A sharp tongue sent the curtain flowing down, revealing most of the magnificent weapons rack the young drow, and many older drow as well, had ever seen. Pole arms of any sorts, swords, axes, hammers, and every other kind of weapon Drizzt could imagine, and a whole bunch he'd never even imagined, sat in elaborate array. Examine them, Zack told him. Take your time and your pleasure. Learn which ones sit best in your hands. Follow most obediently the commands of your will. By the time we have finished, you will know every one of them as a trusted companion. Wide-eyed, Drizzt wandered along the rack, viewing the whole place and potential of the whole experience in a completely different light. For his entire young life, 16 years, His greatest enemy had been boredom. Now it appeared Drizzt had found weapons to fight that enemy. Zack headed for the door to his private chamber, thinking it better that Drizzt be alone with his first awkward moments of handling new weapons. The weapons master stopped, though, when he reached his door and looked back to the young Warden. Drizzt swung a long and heavy halberd, the polearm more than twice his height, in a slow arc. For all of Drizzt's attempt to keep the weapon under control, its momentum spun his tiny frame right to the ground. Zack heard himself chuckle, but his laughter only reminded him of the grim reality of his duty. He would train Drizzt, as he had trained thousands of young dark elves before him, to be a warrior, preparing him for the trials of the Academy and life in dangerous Menzoberranzan. He would train Drizzt to be a killer. How against this one's nature that mantle seemed, thought Zack. Smiles came too easily to Drizzt, and thought of him running a sword through the heart of another living being revolted Zack Nafane. That was the way of the Drow, though, the way Zack had been unable to resist for all his 4 centuries of life. Pulling a stare from the spectacle of Drizzt at play, Zack moved into his chamber and shut the door. Are they all like that? He asked to his nearly empty room. Do all Drow children possess such innocence? Such simple, untainted smiles that cannot survive the ugliness of our world? Zack started for a small desk to the side of the room, meaning to lift the darkening shade off the continually glowing ceramic globe that served as the chamber's light source. He changed his mind as the image of Drizzt's light with the weapons refused to diminish, and he headed instead for the large bed across the door. Or are you unique, Drizzt Warden? He continued as he fell on the cushioned bed. And if you are so different, then what then is the cause? The blood? My blood that courses through your veins? Or the years you spent with your wean mother? Zack threw an arm across his eyes and considered many questions. Drizzt was different from the norm, he decided at length, but he didn't know whether he should thank Vierna or himself. After a while, sleep took him, but it brought the weapons master a little comfort. A familiar dream visited him, a vivid memory that would never fade. Zack Nafane heard again the screams of the children of House de Veer as the Do'Urden soldiers that he himself had trained, slashed at them. This one is different, Zack cried, leaping up from his bed. He wiped the cold sweat from his face. This one is different. He had to believe that. That's the end of the chapter. Oh, to be someone who is good, to be raised in an evil society. We'll see how that goes for him. The next chapter is called Dark Secrets, so we shall see. I'm gonna go take that quick break. I'm gonna go pop some waffles in and make myself a little PB&J, and we'll see you guys in a moment. Scenes. Taking a break. Hello, hello, I'm sorry. I'm back. I had to rush my eating a little bit. I could not, for the life of me, find my new jelly. And so I had to do a lot of searching, and oh my gosh, it was in the first place I looked, but I didn't see it. You know how that sort of thing goes. But yes, thank you everybody for sticking around. Let's get back to it. So we're probably gonna read for another about half hour, and then I have a lot of errands and chores to go do. All right, Chapter 7, Dark Secrets. Do you truly mean to try? Massage asked, his voice condescending and filled with disbelief. Okie dokie, welcome back. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sorry about the jelly fiasco. It was... I don't know why I couldn't find it. I was just, you know, when it's early and you're like, oh, my brain isn't working. Alright, do you truly mean to try? Massage asked, his voice condescending and filled with disbelief. Alton turned his hideous glare on the student. Direct your anger elsewhere, faceless one, Massage said, averting his gaze from his mentor's scarred visage. I am not the cause of your frustration. The question is valid. For more than a decade, you have been a student of the magical arts, Alton replied. Still, you fear to explore the netherworld at the side of the master of Sorcerer. I would have no fear besides a true master, Massage dared to whisper. Alton ignored the comment, as he had with so many others had accepted from apprenticing Hunnett over the last 16 years. Massage was Alton's only tie to the outside world. While Massage was a powerful family, Alton only had Massage. They moved through the door into the uppermost chamber of Alton's four-room complex. A single candle burned there, its light diminished by an abundance of dark-colored tapestry, and the black hue of a room's stone and rugs. Alton slid onto his stool at the back of the small circular table and placed a heavy book down before them. It is a spell better left for clerics, Massage protested, sitting down across from the faceless master. Wizards command the lower planes. The dead are for the clerics alone. Alton looked around curiously, then turned to frown up at Massage, the master's grotesque features enhanced by the dancing candlelight. It seems I have no cleric at my call, the faceless one explained sarcastically. Would you rather I try for another denizens of the Nine Hells? Massage rocked back in his chair and shook his head helplessly and emphatically. Alton had a point. A year before, the faceless one had sought answers to his questions by enlisting the aid of an ice devil. The volatile thing froze the room until it shone black in the infrared spectrum and smashed a matron mother's treasure hoard worth of alchemical equipment. If Massage hadn't summoned his magical cat to distract the ice devil, neither he nor Alton could have gotten out of the room alive. Very well then, Massage said unconvincingly, crossing his arms in front of him on the table. Conjure your spirits and find your answers. Alton did not miss the involuntary shudder belied by the ripple in Massage's robes. He glared at the student for a moment, and then went back to his preparations. As Alton neared the time of casting, Massage's hands instinctively went to his pocket, to the onyx figurine of the hunting cat he had acquired on the day Alton had assumed the Faceless One's identity. The little statue was enchanted with a powerful dwemer that enhanced its possessor to summon a mighty panther to his side. Massage had used the cat sparingly, not yet fully understanding the dwemer's... Dwemer or dwemer? I really don't know. When I listened to the audiobook of this, it said dwemer, but it also looks like dwemer. D-W-E-O-M-E-R. Dwemer, I don't know. Limitations and potential dangers. Only in times of need, Massage reminded himself quietly, as when he felt the item in his hand. Why was it that those times kept occurring when he was with Alton? The apprentice wondered. Despite his bravado, this time Alton privately shared Massage's trepidation. Spirits of the dead were not as destructive as the denizens of the lower planes, but they can be equally cruel and more subtle in their torments. Alton needed his answers, though. For more than a decade and a half, he sought his information through conventional channels, inquiring of masters and students, in a roundabout manner, of course, of the details concerning the fall of House de Vere. Many knew the rumors of that eventful night. Some even detailed the battle methods used by the victorious house. None, though, would name the perpetrating house. In Menzoberranzan, one did not utter anything resembling an accusation, even if the belief was commonly shared, without enough undeniable proof to spur the ruling council into unified action against the accused. If a house botched a raid and was discovered, the wrath of all Menzoberranzan would descend upon it until the family name had been extinguished. But in the case of a successfully executed attack, such as one that felled House de Vere, an accuser was more likely to wind up on the strong end of a snake-headed whip. Public embarrassment, perhaps more than any guidelines of honor, turned the wheel of justice in the city of Drow. Alton now sought other means for the solution to his quest. First, he had tried the lower planes, the Ice Devil, to disastrous effect. Now Alton had in his possession an item that could end his frustrations. A tome penned by a wizard of the surface world. In the Drow hierarchy, only clerics of Lolth dealt with the realm of the dead. But in other societies, wizards also dabbled into the spirit world. Alton had found the book in the library of Sorcerer and had managed to translate enough of it, he believed, to make spiritual contact. He wrung his hands together, gingerly opened the book to mark the page, and scanned the incantation one final time. "Are you ready?" he asked Massage. "No." Alton ignored the student's unending sarcasm and placed his hands flat onto the table. He slowly sunk into his deepest meditative trance. Fe Inad. He paused and cleared his throat at the slip. Massage, though he hadn't closely examined the spell, recognized the mistake. Fe Inunad Demin. Another pause. "Loth be with us," Massage groaned under his breath. Alton's eyes popped wide. He glared at the student. "A translation," he growled, "from the strange language of a human wizard." Common? Is it common? Because I feel like most humans just speak common. "Gibberish," Massage retorted. "I have in front of me the private spellbook of a wizard from the surface world," Alton said evenly. "An archmage according to the scribblings of the Orcan thief who stole it and sold it to our agents." He composed himself again and shook his hairless head, trying to return to the depths of his trance. A simple, stupid orc managed to steal a spellbook from an archmage, Massage whispered rhetorically, letting the absurdity of the statement speak for itself. "The wizard was dead," Alton roared. "The book is authentic." "Who translated it?" Massage replied calmly. Alton refused to listen to any more arguments. Ignoring the smug look on Massage's face, he began again. "Fe Inunad Demin de Sul de Ket." Massage faded out and tried to rehearse a lesson from one of his classes, hoping that his sobs of laughter wouldn't disturb Alton. He didn't believe for a moment that Alton's attempt would prove successful, but he didn't want to screw up the fool's line of babbling again and have to suffer through a ridiculous incantation all the way from the beginning until another time. Still another time. A short time later, when Massage heard Alton's excited whisper, "Matron Jennifer?" he quickly focused his attention back to the events at hand. Sure enough, an unusual ball of green-hued smoke appeared over the candle's flame and gradually took a more definite shape. "Matron Jennifer!" Alton gasped again when the summons was complete. Hovering before them was an unmistakable image of his dead mother's face. The spirit scanned the room, confused. "Who are you?" it asked at length. "I'm Alton. Alton de Vere, your son." "Son?" the spirit asked. "Your child." "I remember no child so very ugly." A disguise, Alton replied quickly, looking back at Massage, expecting a snicker. If Massage had chided and doubted Alton before, he now showed only sincere respect. Smiling, Alton continued, just a disguise, that I might move about in the city and exact revenge on our enemies. What city? Menzoberranzan, of course. Still, the spirit seemed not to understand. You are Jennifer? Alton pressed. Matron Jennifer de Vere? The spirit's features contorted into a twisted scowl. As it considered the question. I think. Matron Mother of House de Vere, 4th House of Menzoberranzan, Alton prompted, growing more excited. High Priestess of Lofi. At the mention of the Spider Queen sent a spark through the spirits. Oh no, it balked. Jennifer remembered now. You should not have done this, my ugly son. It is just a disguise, Alton interrupted. I must leave you, Jennifer's spirit continued, glancing around nervously. You must release me. But I need some information from you, Matron Jennifer. Do not call me that, Spirit shrieked. You do not understand. I am not in Lolth's favor. Trouble, whispered Massage offhandedly, hardly surprised. Just one answer, Alton demanded, refusing to let another opportunity to learn his enemy's identity slip past him. Quickly, the spirit shrieked. Name the house that destroyed De Vere. The house? Jennifer pondered. Yes, I remember that evil night. It was house. The ball of smoke puffed out and bent out of shape, twisting Jennifer's image and sending her next words out as an indecipherable blurb. Alton leaped to his feet. No! He screamed. You must tell me! Who are my enemies? Would you count me as one? The spirit image said in a voice very different from the one that it had used earlier. A tone of sheer power that stole the blood from Alton's face. The image twisted and transformed, became something ugly, uglier than Alton, hideous beyond all experience of the material plane. Alton was not a cleric, of course. He had never studied the Drow religion beyond the basic tenets taught to males of the race. He knew the creature now hovering in the air before him, though, for it appeared as an oozy, sliming stick of melted wax, a Yochlol, a handmaiden of Lofi. You dare to disturb the torment of Jennifer? The Yochlol snarled. Damn, whispered Massage, sliding slowly down under the black tablecloth. Even he, with all of his doubts of Alton, had not expected his disfigured mentor to land him in trouble this serious. But, Alton stuttered, never again disturb this plain, feeble wizard, the Yochlol roared. I did not try for the abyss, Alton protested meekly. I only meant to speak with Jennifer, the Yochlol snarled, fallen priestess of Lofi. Where would you expect to find her spirit, foolish male? Frolicking in Olympus with the false gods of the surface elves. Strikxen, how are you? I'm doing good. We're just doing a little reading today. It's gonna be a short stream. Only for another 15 minutes, I think we're reading, but it's a good one nonetheless. I did not think. Do you ever? The Yochlol growled. Nope, Massage answered silently, careful to keep himself far out of the way as possible. Never again disturb this plane, the Yochlol warned a final time. The Spider Queen is not merciful, and has no tolerance for meddling males. The creature's oozing face puffed and swelled, expanding beyond the limits of the smoky ball. Alton heard gurgling, gagging noises, and he stumbled back over his stool, putting his back flat against the wall, and bringing his arms up defensively in front of his face. The Yochlol's mouth opened impossibly wide, and spewed forth a hail of small objects. They ricocheted off Alton and tapped against the wall all around him. Stones? The faceless wizard wondered in confusion. One of the objects then answered his unspoken question. It caught hold of Alton's black robes and began crawling towards his exposed neck. Spiders. I'm not Kirito, by the way. Are you just someone using his account? A wave of the eight-legged beast rushed under the little table, sending Massage tumbling out of the other side in a desperate roll. He scrambled to his feet and turned back, to see Alton slapping and stomping wildly, trying to get out of the main host of crawling things. "Do not kill them," Massage screamed. "To kill spiders is forbidden to the nine hells with the clerics and their laws." Alton shrieked back. Massage shrugged in helpless argument, reached around under the folds of his own robe, and produced the same two-handed crossbow he used to kill the Faceless One those 2 years ago. He considered the powerful weapon and the tiny spiders scrambling around the room. "Overkill?" he asked aloud. Hearing no answer, he shrugged again and fired. The heavy bolt knifed across Alton's shoulder, cutting a deep line. The wizard stared in disbelief, and then turned an ugly grimace on Massage. "You had one on your shoulder," the student explained. Alton's scowl did not relent. "Ungrateful?" Massage snarled. "Foolish Alton! All the spiders on your side are on your side of this room, remember?" Massage turned to leave and called, "Good hunting," over his shoulder. He reached for the handle of the door, but as soon as his long fingers closed around it, the portal surface transformed into the image of Matron Jennifer. She smiled widely, too widely, and an impossibly long and wet tongue reached out and licked across Massage's face. Ugh. "Alton!" he cried, spinning back against the wall out of the slimy member's reach. He noticed the wizard in the midst of spellcasting. Alton fighting to hold his concentration as a host of spiders continued their hungry ascent up his flowing robes. "You are a dead one," Massage commented, matter-of-factly, shaking his head. Alton fought through the exacting ritual of the spell, ignored his own revulsions of the crawling things, and forced the evocation to completion. In all of his years of study, Alton never would have believed he could do such a thing. He would have laughed at the mere mention of it. Now, however, it seemed far preferable fate to the yokel's creeping doom. He dropped a fireball at his feet. Naked and hairless, Massage stumbled through the door and out of the inferno. The flaming faceless master came next, diving into a roll and stripping his tattered burning robes from his back as he went. As he watched Alton patting out the last of the flames, a pleasant memory flashed in Massage's mind, and he uttered the single lament that dominated his every thought at this disastrous moment. "I should have killed him when I had him in the web." Also, I think, yeah, we got lag again, and I'm really sorry about that. A short time later, after Massage had gone back to his room and his studies, Alton slipped on the ornamental metallic bracers that identified him as a master of the academy, and slipped outside the structure of Sorcerer. He moved to the wide and sweeping stairway leading down from Tir Brish, and sat down to take in the sights of Menzoberranzan. Even with his view, though, the city did little to distract Alton from the thoughts of his latest failure. For 16 years he had forsaken all other dreams and ambitions in his desperate search to find the guilty house. For 16 years he had failed. He wondered how long he could keep up the charade, and his spirits. Massage, his only friend, if Massage could be called a friend, was more than halfway through his studies at Sorcerer. What would Alton do when Massage graduated and returned to House Hannett? "Perhaps I shall carry on my toils for centuries to come," he said aloud, only to be murdered by a desperate student as Massage, murdered the Faceless One. Might that student disfigure himself and take my place? Alton couldn't stop the ironic chuckle that passed his lipless mouth at the motion of a perpetual faceless master of Sorcerer. At what point would the matron mistress of the academy get suspicious? 1,000 years? 10,000? Or might the Faceless One outlive Menzoberranzan itself? Life as a master was not such a bad lot, Alton supposed. Many drow would sacrifice much to be given such an honor. Alton dropped his face into the crook of his elbow and forced away such ridiculous thoughts. He was not a real master, nor did the stolen position bring him any measure of satisfaction. Perhaps Massage should have shot him that day, 16 years ago, when Alton was trapped in the Faceless One's web. Alton's despair only deepened when he considered the actual time frame involved. He had just passed his 70th birthday, and he was still young by Drow standards. The notion that only a tenth of his life was behind him was not comforting one to Alton DeVere this night. How long will I survive, he asked himself. How long until this madness that is my existence consumes me? Alton looked back over the city. Better that the Faceless One had killed me, he whispered, for now I am Alton with no name worth mentioning. With no house worth mentioning. Visage had dumped him that on the first morning after House DeVere's fall, but way back then. With his life teetering on the edge of a crossbow, Alton had not understood the title's implications. Menzoberranzan was nothing more than a collection of individual houses. A rogue commoner might latch onto one of them to call his own, but a rogue noble wouldn't likely be accepted by any house in the city. He was left with Sorcerer and nothing more, until his true identity was discovered at last. What punishments would he then face for the crime of killing a master? Massage may have committed the crime. Massage had a house to defend him. Alton was only a rogue noble. By the way, if I say 50,000 points, will you read Solo Leveling? Probably. That is one that even my partner has asked me to read, because Solo Leveling is apparently really good. I mean, I know the plot of Solo Leveling, kind of. It seems pretty good. But we would probably read the light novel. What punishments would he then face? Oh, we already read that. He sat back on his elbows and watched the rising heat of Narbondale. As the minutes became hours, Alton's despair and self-pity went through inevitable change. He turned his attention to the individual drow houses now, not to the conglomeration that bound them as a city, and he wondered what dark secrets each harbored. One of them, Alton reminded himself, held the secret that he most dearly wanted to know. One of them had wiped out House DeVere. Forgotten was the night's failure with Matron Jinnife and the Yolkul. Forgotten was the lament for an early death. 16 years was not so long a time, Alton decided. He had perhaps 7 centuries of life left within his slender frame. If he had to, Alton was prepared to spend every minute of those long years searching for the perpetuating house. Vengeance, he growled aloud, feeding off that audible reminder of his only reason for continuing breath. Alton DeVere wants vengeance, and he doesn't know who against. We know. It's the De Warden house. They're the ones who destroyed the DeVeres. Okay, my friends. Ooh, big stretch. Oh, thank you guys so much for coming by and being so cool. It is going to be a short stream. We're going to go ahead and end it there. How many viewers do I even have? I actually do not know, because OBS does not tell me that. Well, anyways, we'll go ahead and arc someone. 1? Okay, never mind then. I guess we can still raid someone. Give them a nice friendly raid. Who's even on? Ah, Pumpkin's on. I haven't watched Pumpkin in a while. Let's go ahead and do that. Only me. Well, thank you, Kirito, for being here. I do appreciate it. We're gonna go say hi to Pumpkin, my lovely, lovely friend. 3 ends. You don't have to feel like you have to come, but it'd be appreciated. Until then, my friends, I'm Strikxen. This is my blanket fort. I hope you guys all have a wonderful rest of your Monday, and I'll see y'all later. Bye! Can I eat pumpkin after? If you want to. Pumpkin spice.